going on. So this project's been going on for about 4, 5, 6 years. You know, with COVID, right? Since 2018 is kind of the birth of this project. It's called like There's Nobody Like Us. That's because it's coming from the voice of BIPOC teens. And this is about BIPOC teens, manga, and social emotional learning. So this is me. I'm an associate professor at Queens College, GSIS, Graduate School of Library and Information Studies. I'm on the advisory board of the Library of Congress Literacy Awards. I'm the co-founder of the iSchool Inclusion Institute. And I research BIPOC youth. I also research subcultures. And I look at the information worlds that people are a part of and what all that means. I'll get into a little bit of that as we go. So our roadmap for today, I used to be a teacher, so I give agendas, sorry. But I'm going to talk a little bit about BIPOC teens and manga and why it matters culturally. I'm going to give you a little manga 101 for those of you that are a little unfamiliar with it. I'm going to talk about a series of focus groups that I did around the nation last year and have a little conclusion for you. So let's get situated. So I live in New York City, like I said, and I've been attending New York Comic Con. So Comic Con is one of the largest conventions for the comic industry and for fans. New York City hosts the second largest. The largest is in San Diego, but New York is number 2. Ours is extremely huge. We have movie premieres, series premieres, like Wednesday premiered there. You name it, it's been there. So it's a huge crowd, and as a person attending, I always notice there's so many BIPOC people in cosplay, all over. But when I look at the media, and I read about cosplayers, or I see it represented in the news, I don't see people of color represented. I only see it as almost like a white subculture, like a geeky nerd white subculture is how cosplay and manga and all this gets kind of presented. I was like, that's really weird because I keep seeing such a huge community here. What is happening? Along with that, I do research in school libraries with BIPOC youth. So I'm from San Antonio, Texas, and I went back to my hometown, to my school library on the west side of San Antonio, which is the poor side of town. We have a 98% poverty rate for our students in the high schools and the middle schools. It's also 96% Hispanic. So I'm talking to the high school seniors about their school libraries, their use, what do they read, how do they do things. Ask a simple question. How many of you use your school library? 0 hands went up. Ask the second question. How many of you check out books from the library? 0 hands go up. How many of you read books? 0 hands go up. Okay. How many of you go to Barnes & Noble? All the hands go up. I love Barnes & Noble. Oh my God, I love going to Barnes & Noble. What do you do there? Well, I read. What do you read? So, well, I like military books. I like the romance books. I like, they're talking about the different genres of books they like. And then one kid says, I like manga. And they all spark up, oh yeah, I like manga too. I read manga. And this is 2018. They're all saying how much they love manga. Now, I was kind of unfamiliar with it as a reader. I wasn't a manga reader myself, but I know about the culture. I study subcultures. I go to Comic Con. I see it all. But I hadn't really read about it. So it shocked me a little bit. It's like, y'all are into manga? I'm like, yeah, we really love it. I was like, wow, that's an interesting thing. So one of the quotes was, well, yeah, we read, but not those books in the library. They have like 20 copies of the same books, those boring ones that we have to read in class, the old ones, right? And that's how they see their school libraries. Now, their school libraries probably aren't as good as your school libraries. Maybe their libraries aren't as good as yours. It's a very impoverished communities with libraries that just have old books in them. Interesting thing nonetheless. So that starts hitting my radar, paying attention to BIPOC teens, reading manga, Comic-Con, people of color as cosplayers. This is a tweet from Tony Weaver. Tony Weaver goes around, he's a big manga fan, collects manga, gets donations, and takes them to school libraries, and donates these all around the country. And he actually just wrote a graphic novel as well. So Tony and I have actually become pretty close friends. We've presented on panels. Actually, we presented at ALA last year together. But he had this tweet that really caught my eye that said, when manga helped me find a sense of belonging, my teachers told me it wasn't real reading. Now I get to take manga to schools around the country and help kids unlock a love for literacy in themselves. Crunchyroll, thank you for believing in this. What really caught me here, one, the joy, just the joy that you see with the students getting the books, right? It catches you immediately with the idea of belonging. So I study belonging with undergraduates. So the program I talked about, the iSchool Inclusion Institute, is about belonging. So I try to take undergraduate, underrepresented students and get them interested in library and information science for master's degrees. And I lived with them in dorms for 30 days to really build a sense of community, get the sense of belonging going. So when belonging came up, mixed with manga, mixed with BIPOC teens, like my brain was like, oh my God, this has had these things, that the puzzle pieces are fitting together. Why does belonging matter? Well, glad you asked. BIPOC students frequently mention feelings of isolation as a reason for dropping out of STEM and a reason for dropping out of college. Successful BIPOC students are able to maintain a sense of community outside of their family and outside of their school. Extremely important at the university level, extremely important in science, technology, engineering, and math, because as you make friend groups and cohorts, you feel like you belong in a space. And as you feel that you belong, of course, you're not going to let people just push you out very easily. You're going to have a sense of resilience because your friends can get your back. You're in this together, and we all know that. Membership in a community creates a shared emotional connection that provides direct and indirect support so that people can help each other directly, but also just knowing that there's someone else in the room like you also helps. Representation matters. We know that representation matters. So specifically, because I do study Mexican-American teens, so manga and Mexican-American teens, this is a picture from cosplayers in a Comic-Con that was held in San Antonio, the Mexican-American teens here. From what the teens were telling me, the stories typically mirror what they see as shared family values between Mexican-Americans and Japanese families. So they say, we've got this, we like to have dinner together, food's really important. We have established gender roles taught down from generation to generation that are strict that we feel we have to follow. And they saw that and really made that connection there. The manga that they read have real strong messages of resilience. And they feel that they can, as long as they push, as long as they work hard, we can make it past it. We've been through bad times. If we stick together as a family, if we stick together as friends, we can make it out. The narrative and the archetypes of manga, because a lot of them are serialized. It's volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, volume 4, follow the same familiar format as telenovelas that are like Spanish soap operas that are on the Spanish shows. And historically, manga's been translated into Spanish way before English. So the manga started in Japan. They usually get translated into French, and then it follows into Spanish, usually because of Spain and because of Mexico and all of Latin America. And then English follows about a year and a half behind. So the Spanish speakers are actually ahead in manga of the English speakers because the series are coming out quicker. Here's one of the quotes. So they talk about Dragon Ball Z a lot. So Goku is a character in Dragon Ball Z. Like Goku's he's a hardworking immigrant who grew up here but still defined by his status as an immigrant. And hell, Gohan's a picture of a first-gen kid who doesn't want to follow in the family tradition. He's out there studying, working to live that American life. Now mind you, they're saying that American life, they're talking about a Japanese comic written for Japanese kids, but they're seeing themselves in it, they're putting their stories into these narratives there. Think about the cultural impact of manga right now. If you're listening to hip-hop, you're going to hear lyrics about Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, you name it, the characters are all over hip-hop lyrics, particularly if any of your MCs and rappers that are under 28 years old, who grew up watching anime and reading manga, and they're talking about it, and they look up these are their heroes. It's not necessarily Superman or Captain America, it's the manga characters. The manga characters are the ones that are getting referenced more so in hip-hop. Here's a quote from RZA, if there's any Wu-Tang fans here. And of course, Sailor Moon on the left-hand side. Like even media made by black men for black men in America is still created in the context of America and all that carries. Dragon Ball Z or Sailor Moon for me is something we can consume that is blessedly free of some of the ickiness of the American context we grew up with. Not that Japan's somehow inherently better, but its problems are different and alien from some of our social ills. So a lot of manga just feels like a great escape, unburdened by all that. Different way of thinking about manga and the cultural impact and what it means and why this Japanese media is hitting so hard with the BIPOC community. This is another interesting example. This is Blue Lock. How many of you read Blue Lock? So Blue Lock's a great one. Blue Lock is a book, basically Japan does really poorly at the World Cup, and the country wants to do better. So they say, let's get all the best strikers. The strikers are the people that score the goals on a soccer team. Let's get all the best strikers around the country, and we're going to put them all into a new facility that we build, and we're going to figure out who's the best striker, and then we're going to make this great World Cup team, and we're going to go and compete. Really compelling story, serialized, it just goes over and over. It's about teamwork, it's about friendship, it's about empathy, But it really captured the imagination of Japan and, of course, America and Spain and all over the world. Like, everybody loves Blue Lock. It's just a really well-written, really drawn well thing. Here's the big impact. When Japan goes to the FIFA World Cup, the little patch that you see on the left-hand side of their jersey is the Blue Lock patch. So the Japan FIFA World Cup team is wearing a manga patch on their jersey to show the unity and how much they believe in their team of, like, we're going to be like Blue Lock going out to play, which I think is very significant because we know the importance of soccer and football worldwide. I'm going to do a little manga 101 now, since not everybody's as familiar with it. Before I do that, I want to introduce my project manager. This is Jillian Brutus. Jillian Brutus has been collaborating. She's a New York City school librarian, author of the book Manga in Libraries. She's a 2024 Will Eisner comic industry judge and a library mover and shaker. So Jillian and I started collaborating. She's a graduate of my program at Queens College. And we kept seeing each other at Comic-Con, and I was hearing about the focus groups and the kids talking about manga. So I asked her, I was like, hey, do your kids talk about manga at all in your library? She's like, oh, that's all they check out. My library just spins, circulates manga. She ends up working in my neighborhood where her high school is. I was like, can I come by? Can I take a look at your library, get a tour? Sure. Go by, take a tour, and kids, manga everywhere, like little cats in windows, just reading, checking them out. So I asked if I could do a series of focus groups in the school. We get permission from the school, and I talk to the students. And that's where original focus groups and data starts getting collected from this project. But before we jump into that, manga sales have quadrupled since 2019. So they're only at 5.5 million in 2018. They're up to 28.4 million now in 2022, and it's still rising. So they've really hit with this generation right now, just reading it and consuming it. If you go to Barnes & Noble, you'll notice the footprint of manga now. It's a good chunk of the store where graphic novels are now just kind of squeezed into the manga section. So you're seeing just growth. So what is manga? Well, it's pronounced manga, with that long A, manga. It's comics originally published in Japan, created for a Japanese audience. You read them from right to left. They're published in black and white. Why are they published in black and white? Because they publish so frequently, there's so many volumes, they've got to keep the cost down. So they publish them in black and white. And the people who draw them or write them are called mangaka. That's the name of the people who produce the manga. So how do you read manga? And this comes out of the Manga in Libraries, a guide for teen librarians, an ALA edition book. You start off on the right-hand side to read. So if you look at number 1, you read panel on the right, go to number 2, number 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way down. And the same with the text bubbles. Starts up on the right-hand side to the 2, to 3, 4, 5, 6. This confuses a lot of early readers and actually confuses librarians as well. So librarians will say, I don't understand manga, I just don't get it. Well, you're reading it backwards. You've got to start from the other side. So this is a good thing to keep in mind on how to read manga, and also it's good to tell new manga readers, this is how you read it. It's going from right to left. This is a book, Komi Can't Communicate. How many have heard of Komi? Lots of hands. Excellent. So Komi gets mentioned quite a bit with the teens that I talk to. So Komi's a story about a beautiful girl in high school. She dresses great, looks cool, everyone thinks she's perfect, but she doesn't talk to anybody. And everyone assumes that she's just aloof or that she's too good, stuck up, too good for everybody. But one of the boys decides he wants to become her friend or wants to start talking to her. So as he approaches her and starts to talk, he realizes that she just has social anxiety, like severe social anxiety, and that's why she's not talking to people. So we start building empathy for the character. And over time, they begin speaking to each other by writing to each other on the blackboard because she can't talk. And I know you can't see it, but on the left-hand side it says, I can't talk about it. I can't even say hello. But I actually want to talk. I get nervous in front of people. My face freezes up and I get scared. But they're talking back and forth and they build a really nice relationship with each other by talking. And they decide that she's going to make a goal of meeting 100 new friends in the semester. And that's the story. That's it. There's no superheroes. There's no fighting. There's no anything. It's just how can we overcome social anxiety, which is a great lesson, especially for today's youth. So here's some quotes from some of the kids that talk about it. I feel like the art helped you understand because especially when she had the blackboard and she was writing how she was feeling and what she wanted to say, because she was too scared to say it, that really helped just see how she was feeling and at what point she wanted to get across. Like with Comey, it might be self-awareness, relationship skills, because she knows that she has social anxiety and she has to work on her relationship skills. The whole series is about her working on the relationship skills and trying to make 100 friends. So like he was saying, the more you see the character's growth, the more you'll want to see where they go next. And yeah, it's just the journey that you want to see and it draws you in. This is another book that really draws with the students, with the BIPOC students. It's called B-Stars. So B-Stars is about a fictional world, fictional high school is where it's set, where there's predators and there's prey, herbivores and carnivores. So the herbivores don't want to get killed by the carnivores, and the carnivores have a natural instinct to eat them, but they all go to high school together, right? So the carnivores have to learn not to eat the herbivores. A murder occurs, a bloody murder. One of the herbivores gets killed, and they start blaming good old gray wolf over here, and everyone's assuming that he's one of the killers. So this is an interesting book because what it breaks into for the kids, the BIPOC students, especially the males, really relate with this character because they feel that society's looking at them as predators. Society's expecting them to be bad, but they're not bad, they're good. They want to be the good wolf. But nobody wants to get to know them because everyone's viewing them by what they think. And the artist gets that across by these shadows. So if you look at the wolf looking into the mirror, and he looks into the mirror in the middle panel, and the shadow wolf is looking back at him, because that's how people perceive him. It's that shadow figure coming at him. And the entire book, it's just him dealing with, how do I handle these types of emotions and situations? And the BIPOC students really, really, really get into this one, because they live it, right? They live these stories. You know, some quotes. Everyone had like a fixed perspective on him, that he was some big, bad predator and no one should mess with him. So I guess I could see seeing that in manga and how he processed through that little black shadowy figure, and he was trying to succumb to what everyone thought of him interesting. So I connect. Another student. Well, for me, it's mostly about a struggle with his own personal identity he was going through, because a lot of times you can withhold yourself from accepting a certain truth about yourself and see him struggle with coming to terms with this is something I like. This is something that's a part of my identity. And then also him trying to reason with it and adapt it to his own lifestyle in a way that won't hurt him or hurt other people. Right? Those are real feelings that they're feeling. It's not the character. This is real life for these students. And I want to talk about some focus groups, but first, let's appreciate the Institute of Museum and Library Services. So IMLS funded this project. Right? Let's clap. Yeah, let's clap. I see people. Let's clap for IMLS. IMLS needs to hear us right now. Right? So the project officers, the reviewers, everybody who's there have been supporting projects like these, sending money to our states and really helping us, and they need our support. So let's not forget IMLS, and we're with you, IMLS. All right, focus groups. So IMLS funded a 3-year grant for $316,000. We're on year 1.5 right now. We'll see tomorrow if we're going to continue on to the second half. We'll see what happens. But luckily, we collected all the data. So it went out to 7 areas: the Texas Rio Grande Valley. The Texas Rio Grande Valley borders Mexico. So these are rural community towns, rural/small city towns that are about 92-93% Hispanic. Chicago, New Orleans, Atlanta, Memphis, San Diego, and Los Angeles. These are all areas with high demographics of BIPOC youth that are at least a third higher than the national average. This is why I chose these communities. I wanted to go somewhere where we could find BIPOC youth, but also not just represent BIPOC youth in urban settings. So in each one of these places, I did 2 focus groups, or 2, sometimes 3, to make sure I hit the urban core, but also either the rural area or the suburban area, depending on the type of place. And that way we could really get a sense of who was out there. So for instance, in San Diego, went to the small town, and now I'm forgetting the name of it. Anyway, right near Escondido. Terrible of me. But it's a kind of a rural town that's on the outskirts. 14 total focus groups with about 138 total people that we talked to. I pay participants $40 each to participate, and I feed them pizza. It sounds like a lot of money, it's not. And the reason that I say that is, as a BIPOC youth myself, I would see, come participate in a research study, and I always wanted to participate. The issue was, I had a part-time job after school. And if I went to go participate in a research study, that meant I couldn't take my shift. Because yeah, that focus group was 1 hour, but I had to drive there for half an hour, I had to go to the focus group, then I had to get home, and by the time that was all done, I wasn't gonna make it to work in time. So my view was gone from the record, or anybody liked me that had to work, not in the record. So I offer $40 in place of transportation costs, in place of You might have to work 2 or 3 hours of your shift. Come over. Oh, it's after school? You're probably hungry. I'm going to get you some pizza. So that's what this is about. It's not about overpaying people. Some people will look at a $40 fee and say, that's too much. I like to do a $10 raffle and you might win. Like, no. People can't participate in that if they don't have money already. So for those of you that want to do research, pay your people. Each one of these was 60 to 90 minutes, depending on how many people came. It's 15 hours of audio. And I use focus groups, transcribe using in vivo software, open coding to axial coding to theoretical coding, all that nonsense. Let's get to the main point. Overall themes. Manga acts as a counter-narrative for marginalized youth, allowing them to explore themes of justice, oppression, and identity. So the counter-narrative really goes against the characters in the storytelling that challenges dominant Western hero narratives. So most of the narratives that we get, particularly for superheroes or comics, is good guy, bad guy. And the good guy has to stop the bad guy because the bad guy is bad. But this other type of storytelling that you see in manga usually gets into the bad characters and wants to find out the reasoning for why they're being bad, and that starts exposing the trauma that they had in their past. It starts exposing maybe some of the challenges that they had financially, and makes you empathize for the character and shows that the world isn't black and white. The world, right, it's a gray space, and if we take time to be empathetic, we can understand people better. So they get into empathy, systemic forces, social responsibility. Also, reading manga fosters racial and cultural awareness, providing insights into different worldviews. So when we talked about Komi Can't Communicate, one of the things that we saw on there, we didn't think about, but we saw what a Japanese school looks like. We saw that in Japan they wear uniforms. We saw what their desks look like. We saw that they're still using blackboards for certain things. So just little cultural cues that you're picking up while you're reading stick with you and start developing that worldview for you. So as you keep reading manga, you'll start learning about Japanese families, not because they're teaching you about Japanese families, but because that's where the story's set. So you start learning about how they act, start learning about the different presets in there. The other one is that escapism and resistance can coexist. So you can read something to escape a situation or to forget about the world, but as you're escaping, you're also developing a resistance. You're developing a way to push back against the regular world that you live in. So as marginalized youth, they use manga both as a refuge and that tool for self-discovery and emotional growth. So here's some examples of counter-storytelling, lived experiences of BIPOC youth. One of the students says, this is about personal growth through manga. That manga really helped me because I had major anger issues and I didn't know how to express them. It showed me how you don't always have to use your fists first. You can always, at least, even if there's yelling, express your feelings with words. So just kind of reflecting how BIPOC youth use media to navigate emotional struggles, a form of the counter-narrative against your traditional punitive approaches to discipline and self-expression. Who gets to be a hero is a big one here. So this is another speaker talking about empathy-based heroism. Instead of just beating up his enemies, he tries to empathize with them and understand why are they the way they are. And 50-50 of the time, he manages to convince the enemies to step down an eternity past. They don't have to fight necessarily, they can talk through things. Another student said, as a BIPOC person, what's it called? A lot of the series that you see yourself in are trauma movies, like black trauma movies, those type things. It gets tiring and you want to see yourself being represented in a place that you don't have to look at all the trauma that you have to deal with, all the stuff that you have to deal with. Right? So they want to see the same thing over and over. My brother's dead, I have a single mom, my dad's in jail. Just over and over, these media portrayals of stereotypes that we're told, like, well, these are written for black youth, these are written for urban. It's like, no, these kids want just to be kids, right? They just want to read stuff. The power of narrative, it gives them opportunities to reflect about oppression. This is about understanding manipulation of power structures. So manga shows messages of either the common message of friendship or how to figure out who is not safe to be around. It also shows how some people think they're doing good but end up being manipulated by a villain. This really connects with the idea of interest convergence. Interest convergence is when individuals or institutions act in a seemingly moral way, but they do it for self-preservation. So one good example of this, we could look at states like Texas, that a couple of years ago, after 2016, they all started having DEI officers, right? Because, oh, we're going to do DEI because that's what we need to do. We need to protect. But as soon as the pressure came down, as soon as it started seeing like, wait, Trump might win here, let's fire all the DEI officers, right? Because that was a signal. It wasn't for DEI, it was to look good. It It was for self-preservation. It was to mute the masses that were coming up. So different ways to think about these things. Also about oppression. I feel it's just in general more interesting to consume media about people of color, written by people of color. Just focus on other stories about people who aren't white, and the stories aren't written by white people. I just feel it makes it so that even though you're not the same ethnicity or same race, you still have that knowledge of, oh, they're a person of color, and their stories about people of color. So whether they're as different as ever from you can still connect with them on a certain level. Right? So just having these fresh narratives are extremely important. How about the duality of oppression and hope? Right? Escapism and reality. Manga becomes a way to process your personal difficulties through engaging narratives. I use it as a coping mechanism. At the time, my parents were kind of going through a really bad divorce and everything, and that first book I got into it was Full Metal Alchemist. If a character is acting or feels a certain way, you'll also feel a certain way just by reading the manga. Ever since I read Komi Can't Communicate, I realized that when you be around people you're comfortable with, it really helps you open up. These are good messages for students to learn, right? This is real reading. And that's part of the problem that we've had with manga, is that manga and even graphic novels and other pieces aren't seen as real reading. Manga is real reading. There's social emotional impact, right? There's all these things that are happening. They're learning about characters, they're learning about empathy, they're learning about self-discovery, they're learning about self-management. All these very important pieces of social emotional learning. So self-awareness, manga helps students reflect on their emotions, their personal struggles, their moral growth, right? They're mirrors for self-reflection. Self-management, students learn healthy ways to handle stress and emotions through character examples, resilience and emotional regulation. The Komi is a good example there of learning how to handle stress and emotions, right? Trying to overcome that fear of public speaking, overcome the fear of talking to people. Social awareness, exposure to different cultures, personalities, and conflicts enhance empathy and perspective taking. Relationship skills, characters modeling the conflict resolution, friendship, communication skills. Any One Piece fans here? Right, so One Piece is a really popular manga that's been an anime, that's also been in a real action live movie or series on Netflix, all about friendship. Right, it's all about friendship and how they do things. Responsible decision making, moral dilemmas in manga encourage critical thinking and ethical reasoning. It's not just they're bad. So let's look at literacy development. And I have a warning on here. Don't use this as a deficit model. Because I think a lot of times graphic novels and manga and even comics, people use this as like, oh, that's good for people that don't know how to read, that aren't good readers. This isn't about that. This is deeper than that, right? So don't use these quotes as a deficit model way of thinking. So this is coming from a native Arabic speaker. Initially struggled with English novels, but found that manga was easier to follow because of visual storytelling. She noted that Arabic is read from right to left, which made manga's format more intuitive than traditional English books. Right, so that's a good thing to think about. This one has reading difficulties. Manga provided an accessible entry point into reading when traditional novels felt overwhelming. Shorter dialogue and the visuals helped maintain that engagement. And another speaker mentioned that manga helped him stay focused while reading because text-only books sometimes made him feel lost or confused. He was particularly talking about navigation inside of books. So if you open up a book in a regular novel, and you stop reading, you can't necessarily find where your mind wandered off, right? You got to go back and you're kind of skimming backwards to find your spot. With manga, having the pictures makes you remember, oh, it's when they were by the window. Find that window page. So just that kind of skimming and that kind of navigation is actually really important, which we don't think about navigating. We think about navigation for websites, we don't think about navigation in books, but that's happening there too. So this is a concept I want to talk about that's really come out of the research here. I call it the noise of novels. Novels are noisy, right? So as a person that doesn't really read, I'm going to have to read as a professor. I read my academic articles, but I don't read for pleasure anymore. I just kind of stopped one day. Although I do read manga. Well, if I read manga, it's for work, but I did stop. But the noise of novels is really important because they're noisy. I want to get to the character development. The students are talking about, I want to get to character development, I want to get to the plot. I don't want to read a page and a half about the setting. I don't want to read about the trees, I don't want to read about the hills, I don't want to read about the wind, I don't want to read about what it smelled like, I don't care. When you can just show me a picture, and it's a picture of hills and trees and wind blowing, and I get all that information instantly. All that information that was in there, they get, and they can jump right into plot. They can jump right into emotion, they can jump right into character development. So in a sense, all of that becomes noise. So one of the quotes here, whenever I read books, I can't visually see what they're trying to describe. So it's really nice to just have what they're doing and what they're saying with the sound effects and an actual picture there so I can actually imagine it. Another one says, I feel like the term image speaks 1,000 words. You can convey so many emotions with one image and having to write them all out. And they showed this to me consistently inside of there. So I would show them one picture of a panel in manga and say, what's happening here? And they would all consistently describe the exact same emotion, the exact same setting, exact same everything. So they're reading the images. They're getting a lot out of these things. But there's something in us that's telling us that that's not the same. Looking at those pictures isn't the same, but it's almost too late. It's almost like going back and telling Elvis Presley that you can't do the twist. You can't do that, right? The older people didn't like that. They didn't like the twist. The rock and roll, that's weird. That's not going to last. And guess what? It already happened. It lasted a really long time, right? Things change, times change, and that may be something that's changing on us, this different type of literacy. It's not the same as what we grew up with. It's not the same as our traditional thing, but it's happening and it might just be different. Here's some emotional connections to character narratives. Students repeatedly describe deep emotional connections to the characters. I mean, they really, really, really tie in with them. It makes manga a good tool for self-reflection, for personal growth, and just offering relatable narratives that help teens process their own emotions and their challenges. A couple of quotes. I think one person I see myself in is Genji from Chainsaw Man. He doesn't really come from a lot, so his dreams and ambitions are very simplistic. I don't really need a whole lot to make myself happy. And aside, the dream and ambition that he initially has is to have a jelly sandwich. That's all he wants. He just wants to try that. Another one says, I've never actually done that, but I understand the anxiety of having to walk up to the cashier and ask for something and then have to rush and pay and fiddle with your wallet. That's a speaker talking about CUNY can't communicate and how they have to, as they say, quote, gas themselves up to go inside to order a coffee because they don't want to interact with the person. But they're learning how to do it through this manga. I feel like watching these characters grow makes me feel like I can grow too. So here's some key takeaways from all of it. Manga's visuals enhance comprehension, and it may be creating an enhanced form of reading. I don't want to say it's a better form of reading, but something else is happening in here. There's something going on with these books that are real books. Teens are deeply connecting with the characters and their emotional struggles. They're seeing themselves in there, literally seeing themselves in there. Manga teaches important life lessons about resilience and relationships and identity. And it serves as a powerful literacy tool, drawing in readers who may be disinterested in traditional books. And just one more time, a big thank you to the Institute of Museum and Library Services for providing the funds to do this type of work. And thank all of you. Happy to take questions.